part of that prayer was actually Psalm 4. As we read in the translation called The Message. You know, I can relate to David in a lot of ways. I can understand that there are things that come along to divert us from what we really want to do in life, and where we want to get to, and what we want to accomplish, and all those other things. And so we ask ourselves, who's the best example we can look up to? Now, I told you this before, right? That no matter who you are, and no matter where you are, there's always someone looking up to you. Even you got the kindergarten kids looking up to you, right? What grade are you in now?
Grade 1.
You're in grade 1? And all the JKs look up to you. Did you know that? They do. So you could be an example to them, right? You can. And it's the same with all of us. There's always someone out there who looks up to us in some way. And when I was preparing this series on prayer, most people would have assumed that I would have started with the Lord's Prayer or Jesus' high priestly prayer. But I've gone elsewhere because I want to end with those so that we have a total understanding about what prayer really is. And when David wrote this psalm, he wrote it as an evening prayer. Now, I did something I don't usually do. It was an interesting study this week when I was looking at that. I actually got into Spurgeon's notes. You know who Charles Spurgeon is? He's an old guy from way back who was probably one of the best preachers ever in modern times. And modern times, I'm going to say in the last 150 years. And I got into his notes, and I'm reading this, and I'm saying to myself, this is old stuff. This is old stuff. And all of a sudden, the light went on. You know, like Ford Motor Company used to have that light bulb. We have a better idea. Well, I didn't think there was anything better than what he had said here. He said, if you go back to Psalm 3, you will be reading his morning prayer. And Psalm 4 was what the Israelites, what the Jewish people sang at nighttime. Now, I'm from an Anglican background originally. And I used to always go to the 7 o'clock service on Sunday night. In fact, I became the usher because all the other ushers decided they had already been there in the morning. They didn't feel like going back at night. And I was the only one, and I was like 13 or 14 years old. Now, if you know anything about the Anglicans, they have communion every chance they get. Right? Okay, every chance they get. So we had communion at evensong. Our evening song. And when David wrote this, he said all the things that we should be thinking about. You can see where it says, where I lay down my head, right? In your anger do not sin, and when you are on your bed, search your heart and be silent. This is for at nighttime. I know this is the morning, but I wanted to do this one today anyhow because it has my favorite word. Does anybody know what my favorite word is?
Joy.
Absolutely, joy. The joy of the Lord is my strength. And if you don't have one of my pens with that on it, you just come and ask me and I'll give you a pen because I got about 485,621. Last count. Because I love that line. And there, when you read that and you see joy, you have filled my heart with joy. Filled. Or greater joy. Filled. You know how you take a glass and you fill it up halfway? What is it? An optimist will say it's half full, and the pessimist will say it's half empty. They're both wrong because it's completely full. Half with water and half with air. And so the joy can be all kinds of different things. It doesn't have to be all the same thing. It doesn't have to be coming into my office anytime and you'll find a whole bunch of chocolate bars there. No, that's only one part of what joy is about. Joy is about all the other things that go together. You know? Like, on Thursday, I went to pick up Deborah. Okay? I get to the airport, and I'm thinking, oh man, got to pull in here, got to pay parking and everything else. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this sign. This is only at the Niagara Falls Airport. I've never seen it at any other. And it said that you could pull in there and park for free for 2 hours. I was, well, I can't say joyful, okay? But yeah, that was a good thing. So I go, oh yeah, I got to get in here. I parked the car and I sat there because it said it's only for standing, not parking. But everybody else was getting out and going into the terminal. So I got out of the car and I went in there too, and Deborah comes and she's got this big smile on her face, and she's coming down in short sleeves and those three-quarter length pants, you know, because it was 88 degrees when she left Florida. And she comes down the escalator. No, she came down the stairs this time. She came down the stairs. That was so good to see you. Do I get a kiss? And then we started walking, and she's so glad because, you know, we all have the same thing. There's no place like. Yeah, she was glad to be home. And we're walking along, and we're just getting. She says, "Where are you parked?" I said, "I'm parked out over there." "Well, why out over there?" I said, "Because it's free." She goes, "You're kidding." I said, "No, I wouldn't kid you about free parking." And then she hit me with the leveler of all levelers. You got to remember this. Put it in your file in the top of your head, Ken. She asked me one question. Ladies, do you know what it was? Did you miss me? What? I didn't hear you. You know, we neglect to see the joys, and that's a great line. You have filled my heart with greater joy than when I had bread and wine. That is an amazing statement. And I'm seeing David say that after the line that I'm really going to get into. Because this song says so much. We know that he was a man after God's own heart. God said that. And we need to turn it around a little bit to understand what it means to be a man or a woman after God's own heart. And I did some more research, and I came across Matthew Henry in his commentary. He said this. It's single-mindedly connected to God. Single-mindedly connected to God. Now here's the question. Are you ready? Get your pens up. You need to write this one down. What takes your time is what you worship. What takes your time is what you worship. What took most of your time this week? I'm not going to say this morning because I know that every morning we all do the same thing, don't we? We lay in bed as long as we can until we think that we have to get going, right? Church is at 11 o'clock, we know that. Okay? How about we move it to 6:30 in the morning? Who would be here? Judy and I already talked about it. So there'd be 3 of us.
Hand's not up.
And Judy said she was not going to make that one. But we get up on Sunday morning and we get into the, and I don't want to call it a routine, we get into the working through the stuff that we normally do in the morning to get ourselves out the door and to church. You know, you get cleaned up, you get fed up. Oh, I should say it a different way, right? You have something to eat, and then you go. And you do all those activities that get you to the point. When in that time did you think of God? David was single-mindedly connected to God. You ever been late? You ever been late to church? Like, I mean really late. You know, I love it, the Sunday where they change the clocks. Right? Especially the Sunday where they move the clock ahead and people show up an hour. Oh, it's the other way around?
Well, do you want them there early or late?
I like them there early. The other one is interesting. I have actually had people come in at 2 minutes to 12 the other way around. Anybody here done that? Yeah, one. And the rest of you won't admit it. But here's what I'm trying to think of. I'm asking and I've been asking myself every day this week. So this isn't just for you, this is for me too. Where in my day was Jesus Christ? Where was Jesus? Each day. If it's true that what takes up our time is what we worship, I'm asking myself, in light of what he's saying, and this is the thing, this is the interesting thing. When he said there that he puts his head down, in your anger do not sin. He's talking about us. He's saying we have normal lives that really get to us. And I don't know about you, but I have been at places when I worked at Ford Motor Company where I wanted to yell and scream at the supervisors, at the superintendent, at the people I worked with. You know how they say don't buy a vehicle that's made on a Friday afternoon shift? What's that? Yeah, don't buy it. Okay, so we're going to pray that the Mustang's made on a Tuesday, right? Friday afternoon shift, there was 4 people doing my job. 2 lower body and 2 upper body. I was repairing body work. I was doing body work on cars before they were painted. Yeah, they needed it sometimes. And round about 9:30 and 10 o'clock, after we had lunch, and some of them went outside and had their liquid lunch, I was the only one working on those vehicles out of 4 people. I wanted to yell and scream and carry on, but what would it do? You see, sometimes life gets the better of us. And when it does, read it again, in your anger do not sin. He's talking about we have difficult times. But this is what he says. When you are on your bed, when you lie down at nighttime, when you set your head on the pillow and the lights are out, this is what he thinks God deserves. Search your heart and be silent. I remember when I was young, my brother and I, my mother at times referred to us both as holy terrors. I don't know where the holy got in, but we were terrors. And I remember one time Dad had gone to the store, and for some reason he brought this ball back. for us. You know, one of those, not the beach balls, but the smaller ones, you know, that got air in them. And we were told, do not play with the ball in the house. And because we were holy terrors, what do you think we did? We played with the ball. Mom was in the kitchen. She couldn't see us. You know, at times we thought she had eyes in the back of her head. You know, when I'd go in to have a cookie, and I'd sneak in and I'd lift the lid up and I'd take the cookie, and as I sat it, put the lid back down, I tried not to make any noise. And in a lot of cases I could, but because it was so quiet, my mother would be standing there working, and she said, Robin, put the cookie back. So we started playing with this ball. And back then, we didn't have much money in our home. In fact, a lot of the things we had in our home were hand-me-downs. I know my grandfather gave us a horsehair couch. Mom and Dad didn't have the money to buy a couch, so Grandpa bought a new one for him, and he gave the horsehair one to us. Anybody remember horsehair couches? Look at that. Just you, well, 3 of us, okay, 4. They were the itchiest things you had ever sat on. And they had these 2 lamps in the living room, mismatched because they couldn't buy pairs. And we were playing with this, and we were having such a good time. Such a good time. Until, got the picture? One of the lamps decided to get in the way of the ball. And that lamp took a nosedive, hit the hardwood floor with a semi-bounce. And you know why it was a semi-bounce? Because the other part of the semi, the half full or half empty, decided to go into a few more pieces than it had originally been in it. Read the line. Search your heart and be. Mom came in and she was furious. And my brother and I were standing there. We never chased after the ball. Okay, the ball was somewhere in the living room. I don't even remember because I was only about 4 at the time. And we stood there with our hands in our pockets like this. And my mother said, which one of you did that? Search your heart. We didn't want to say it. Well, I wanted to say that it was him. Okay? And he wanted to say that it was me. But we knew that if we did that, one of us would really get it. And the other one would be charged with accessory after the fact. So we searched our heart to discover that the best thing to do was to be silent. Can't convict me if I don't say a word. I think that that's how the judicial system is today. I really do. Did you know that in the United States, and I don't know if it's the same here in Canada, sorry again, but in the States, if you have committed a crime, depending on the crime, you are not able to plead guilty. They have to prove that you are guilty. And I'm going, you've got to be kidding. So here's my brother and I. We searched our heart, decided, don't say a word. Never said a word. We just stood there with our hands in our pockets. And, of course, the next line is the killer. Right? Wait until your father gets home. Put it here. Have you got the connection? This is what I'm talking about earlier, how we have to take the everyday things in life and put them in the perspective of what it is all about in relationship to God. And so we stayed we searched our heart and decided not to say a thing, and we were silent. And we trusted in the Lord. The ball sat in the living room for about 2 days. Mom cleaned up the lamp, but we dare not touch it again. Well, until we got nerve to later on. But here's what happened. I don't know if I've told you this story before or not. Dad came home. Paul and I went up the stairs to our bedroom. Closed the door. Dad would stand at the bottom of the stairs after he talked to Mom. Boys, get down here. Ready? Now. Now. Paul, you're first. And Dad would go in the bathroom and sit on the lid down toilet. And he'd call me in and he'd close the door. And all I could hear was this whack, whack, whack. And Paul would come out and he would go flying up the stairs. And by this time, I'm Robin, get in here now. Dad, don't, Dad, don't, Dad. And he would close the door and he said, stop it. When I start swinging, you start screaming and yelling and crying and carrying on, okay? I said, what? When I start swinging, you start crying and screaming and carrying on, okay? I said, okay, Dad, whatever, whatever. And he started smacking his leg. And I screamed and carried on and cried. And as soon as he opened the door, upstairs and into the bedroom with Paul. Here's Paul sitting on his bed going. You get it? Jesus paid it all. Jesus paid it all. Search your heart and be silent. Offer right sacrifices. That's your life. And trust in the Lord. And then we go down. You have filled my heart with greater joy than bread and wine. I lie down and sleep in peace, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. You see, this is a prayer at nighttime when we bow our heads onto a pillow and we realize what we've done through the day may not have been the best example of what God wants us to do in our lives. And we know. And we're silent. We don't try to justify ourselves. I never said, no, Mom, it was Paul. And Paul never said, no, Mom, it was him. No. Never say that. Because eventually, Jesus pays it all. And he did.